when you look at the bottom of a French press or, you stare at that little wet puck of espresso grounds you just knocked out in the trash can, high-tech luxury is probably the absolute last phrase that comes to mind.
Right, yeah. You're usually thinking about compost. Or just, well, how to get the gritty mess off your hands without ruining your sponge.
Exactly. You rinse it down the sink and you really don't give it a second thought. But if you were to take that exact same pile of dark, gritty agricultural waste and just zoom in, I mean, way, way down to the molecular level, you would see a structural gold mine, one that is currently setting off an absolute earthquake in a multi-billion-dollar global industry.
It really is a complete paradigm shift, taking something we literally throw away by the ton and turning it into one of the most premium, sought-after materials on the market.
So welcome to the deep dive. I have to tell you, you, our listener, always manage to track down the absolute most unexpected and cutting-edge sources for us to explore. And today's source might actually take the grand prize.
Oh, without a doubt.
We are looking at a strategic scientific report from a company called Nova Amazonia down in Costa Rica. And the topic sounds like something pulled straight out of a sci-fi novel. 3D biogenic coffee graphene.
It sounds incredibly futuristic, right? And in many ways, I mean, it is.
Yeah.
But the foundation is rooted in something as old as agriculture itself.
Right. So our mission today is to figure out how literal agricultural waste from your morning cup of coffee is being transformed into a highly advanced nanomaterial. A material that is completely revolutionizing the advanced cosmetics industry.
It's a huge leap to make.
It is. Okay, let's unpack this, because when most people hear the word graphene, if they've heard it at all, they think of electronics.
Right, yeah, microchips, batteries, that sort of thing.
Exactly. They think of super strong synthetic materials for aerospace. So how do we get from, coffee branches to a high-tech carbon nanomaterial?
Well, to understand the leap, we really have to look at the innovator behind all this, Martín Gutiérrez Guerrero. He's the CEO of Nova Amazonia in Costa Rica. And he basically started by looking at a massive systemic problem in the Central Valley of Costa Rica, which is coffee industry waste. I mean, growing coffee produces millions of tons of biological trash.
Just mountains of it.
Literally. You have the wood from pruning the coffee plants. You have the roasted coffee pulp, they call it browse down there. And you have the silver skin, which is that very thin layer that covers both the green and roasted coffee beans.
Which normally, from what I understand, just sits in massive piles, decomposing and releasing methane into the atmosphere.
Exactly. It's an ecological headache. But Gutierrez Guerrero looked at that waste and realized that fundamentally plant matter is mostly carbon. And graphene is really just a very specific, arrangement of carbon. So the challenge was simply rearranging the furniture, so to speak.
I love that. Rearranging the furniture. So he's not building from scratch. He's just redecorating the molecules.
That's a great way to look at it. So he developed and patented this process involving something called green pyrolysis and thermal activation.
Pyrolysis. That sounds intense.
It sounds intimidating, yeah. But the mechanism is fascinating. Normally, if you throw a piece of coffee wood into a fire, it burns and turns to ash, right?
That's right, because there's oxygen fueling the fire.
Exactly. That's regular combustion. But with green pyrolysis, they take this coffee waste and put it into a highly controlled extreme heat environment that is completely devoid of oxygen.
Oh, wow. So it literally can't catch on fire.
Correct. Without oxygen, it can't physically burn. So instead of turning to ash, the intense heat basically breaks down the molecular bonds of the organic material. All the non-carbon elements, the hydrogen, the oxygen, the nitrogen, they all just volatilize and gasify away.
Leaving just the carbon behind.
Yes, but what you are left with isn't ash. The carbon atoms are forced to restructure themselves under that heat, leaving behind this highly porous, interconnected, three-dimensional carbon skeleton.
Okay, wait. So instead of trying to build a complex carbon structure from scratch in some sterile lab, they are basically hijacking the architectural blueprint that the coffee plant already built, like burning away the wallpaper but keeping the structural studs of the house.
That is a phenomenal visual, yeah.
Yeah.
And that structural blueprint, that 3D shape, is exactly what makes this such a massive game changer.
Why is the shape so important?
What's fascinating here is the stark contrast between this natural biogenic approach and how we traditionally have to make graphene in a lab. Traditional lab-grown graphene is two-dimensional. It is usually synthesized using this process called chemical vapor deposition, or CVD.
Right, I've seen videos of that. They take a hydrocarbon gas, heat it to blistering temperatures in a vacuum chamber, and basically force the carbon to condense onto a metal plate.
Exactly, and the metal plates they use are heavy metals, typically nickel or copper. Plus, they have to use aggressive solvents and highly toxic precursor gases just to make it happen.
Which sounds terrible for the environment.
Oh, it is. But leaving aside the environmental impact for a second, those heavy metal catalysts are incredibly difficult to fully purify out of the final 2D graphene product.
Meaning there were always traces of heavy metals left over, which immediately disqualifies it from being something you'd ever want to, say, rub into your face as a moisturizer.
Absolutely. You don't want trace nickel in your skin cream. But honestly, even if you could get it perfectly pure, the physical structure of 2D graphene is a total nightmare for biological applications.
Because it's flat?
Because it's a flat sheet that is only 1 atom thick. At a cellular level, the edge of a flat, 1 atom thick sheet acts like a microscopic razor blade.
Oh, wow. A nanoblade.
Yes, literally a nanoblade. If those 2D sheets interact with human cells, those super sharp edges physically slice right into cell membranes.
That sounds horrific.
It causes microlesions and what scientists call cytotoxicity, which literally just means cell toxicity and cell death. And it gets worse. Because these sheets are completely flat, the moment you put them in a solution or try to apply them to human skin, they have a natural tendency to clump together.
Like wet sheets of paper.
Exactly. They collapse flat on top of each other in a process called restacking.
So let me get this straight.
Yeah.
If you put traditional 2D graphene in a face cream, it would basically turn into a microscopic pile of toxic razor blades that aggregate together, slice up your skin cells, and completely suffocate your pores.
Yeah, it would be a complete dermatological disaster.
Which brings us right back to the coffee. If traditional 2D graphene is a pile of flat microscopic razor blades, I'm imagining this 3D biogenic coffee graphene is structurally the exact opposite, because it retains that interconnected 3D plant architecture, right?
Right.
So is it more like, I don't know, a microscopic, perfectly round, highly porous sponge?
The spheroidal sponge is actually the perfect analogy. Because the biogenic version is this interconnected 3D web rather than a flat sheet, there are simply no sharp edges to slice into cells. It is entirely spheroidal.
So it just kind of rolls around.
Basically, and because of that shape, it is absolutely safe, highly biocompatible, and completely free of any genotoxic or mutagenic effects.
And because it's a sponge, it won't restack and suffocate the skin like the flat sheets do.
It physically cannot restack. Those 3D structures might bump into each other, but they can't sit flat against one another. This means when you apply it to the skin, it actually allows for natural skin oxygenation and transpiration.
It lets your skin breathe.
Yes, it allows the skin to breathe perfectly while just sitting harmlessly on the surface.
Okay, so we've taken coffee waste and thermally activated it into this safe, breathable, microscopic carbon sponge. Let's dig into what this superhero sponge actually does when you put it into skincare, because the source report outlines some pretty wild mechanical actions.
It really does.
Let's start with ingredient delivery. I mean, anyone who has ever bought high-end skincare knows you are constantly battling unstable ingredients. You go out and spend $80 on a vitamin C serum, and half of it degrades from oxygen or light before your skin can even absorb it.
Oh, it's a huge problem in the industry. Ingredients like vitamin C, vitamin E, retinol, hyaluronic acid, they are notoriously delicate. They oxidize rapidly. Or, on the flip side, they absorb so quickly into the skin that they cause a massive spike in concentration.
Which causes that redness and burning.
Exactly. Severe dermal irritation because it's just too much all at once.
So how does the 3D sponge fix that?
Well, it acts as a physical delivery system. Think about the architecture we just talked about. Those hyperporous, cave-like cavities inside our microscopic carbon sponge actually physically encapsulate those unstable molecules.
Oh, I see. You're literally tucking the fragile vitamin C inside the tough carbon cage.
Precisely. The carbon structure shields the delicate molecules from light and ambient oxygen, which completely prevents degradation. Then, when you apply it to the skin, that complex maze-like structure slows down the release.
Because it takes time for the ingredients to find their way out of the maze.
Right. The active ingredients have to gradually diffuse out of the sponge over a period of hours. This sustained release prevents those massive spikes in concentration that cause irritation, and it ensures the ingredients actually survive long enough to work.
That structural protection alone makes it incredibly valuable. But it's not just acting as a passive delivery truck, right? The report notes it is also acting as a shield and an active treatment in itself.
Yeah, it forms a physical barrier against UV radiation, for one.
But the part that really caught my eye is its antioxidant properties. The text indicates that because it is made from coffee, it actually sort of remembers its biological origin.
It is a brilliant example of chemistry retaining its roots. Even after undergoing that extreme thermal pyrolysis, this biogenic graphene retains functional traces of native phenolic compounds and chlorogenic acid.
And those are the natural antioxidants found in high concentrations in raw coffee plants.
Exactly. So the carbon lattice isn't just holding other antioxidants you put into the cream. The material itself has an innate chemical ability to neutralize free radicals and combat oxidative stress on the skin.
That is wild. And functionally, because it's carbon, it's also a deep, rich, black pigment.
A completely natural pigment, yes.
The report mentions it is already being formulated into smart color cosmetics. So think volumizing mascaras, eyeliners, and liquid foundations. It gives a natural matte finish, absorbs excess oil because it's so incredibly porous, and resists sweat and water without blocking hair follicles.
It's an all-in-one cosmetic ingredient.
It really is. But let's pause here for a second because I have to push back on one specific claim in the report regarding acne.
Oh, okay. Let's hear it.
I'm looking at the section on anti-acne treatments. The text literally states that this 3D graphene exerts a, quote, benign but lethal mechanical action, unquote, against acne bacteria.
Right.
How can something be benign and lethal at the exact same time? It sounds like a total marketing contradiction.
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
are we just physically popping bacteria like balloons?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, your balloon analogy is actually entirely scientifically accurate.
Wait,
Yes, it sounds like a contradiction until you look at the scale of what we are dealing with. It is benign to human skin cells because human cells are, relatively speaking, massive.
Okay, so to a human cell.
To a human cell, this graphene is just a smooth spheroidal sponge gently bumping against it.
To bacteria.
To something as microscopic as Cutibacterium acnes, which is the specific pathogenic bacteria responsible for acne breakouts, the scale changes completely. To that tiny, tiny bacterium, the nanostructured ridges and pores of this 3D sponge are precisely the right size and shape to physically snag and destabilize its outer membrane.
It physically ruptures the bacterial wall.
Yes, it physically tears them open.
It really is popping them. That is insane.
It is physically destroying them, yes. And this is why it's so important. This is a monumental medical breakthrough because it is a purely mechanical bactericide, not a chemical one.
Oh, wow. I see where this is going. If you use a traditional chemical antibiotic on acne, you are introducing a chemical poison. And biology is smart. The bacteria eventually mutate, figure out a chemical workaround, and develop resistance.
Which is exactly why dermatologists constantly have to switch up acne medications for patients. The creams just stop working.
Yeah.
But a bacterium cannot mutate a biological defense against being physically torn apart by a carbon nanostructure.
Because it's physical damage, not a chemical reaction.
Right. It's a structural impossibility to mutate against that. You are effectively solving the bacterial acne problem without contributing to the looming global crisis of antibiotic resistance.
That is genuinely mind-blowing. It's a sustained delivery system, a UV shield, an inherent antioxidant, a makeup pigment, and literally a physical assassin for acne bacteria.
It does a lot.
It really does. But here's where it gets really fascinating. Having explored everything this material adds to skincare, the source report pivots to something even bigger. Because the real industry disruption might actually be what this material removes and replaces in everyday products.
Yeah, the clean beauty movement is arguably the biggest economic driver in cosmetics today. Consumers are deeply aware of toxic chemicals, and this single biogenic material solves multiple controversies simultaneously.
Let's start with fragrances. To make a perfume or like a scented body lotion last all day on your skin, cosmetic companies have historically relied really heavily on synthetic phthalates.
The phthalates are chemical binding agents, and they are highly controversial. There are significant, widely documented health concerns surrounding them, particularly regarding their role as endocrine disruptors.
They mess with your hormones.
Exactly. But the cosmetic industry has really struggled to abandon them because water-soluble essences and delicate essential oils evaporate incredibly quickly. Without a binder, you put your perfume on and it vanishes in an hour. So how does the coffee sponge replace a toxic endocrine disruptor?
Through mechanical entrapment rather than chemical binding. That hyperporous matrix we talked about earlier, it acts as a molecular trap. When you mix the fragrance into the graphene, those delicate scent molecules wander deep into the microscopic caves of the sponge.
They get lost in the maze.
Right. And once you apply it to the epidermis, it takes a very long time for those scent molecules to bounce their way back out and finally evaporate. It literally locks the scent onto the skin for over 24 hours, providing the exact same stabilization as phthalates, but completely organically.
That's brilliant. So it traps scent molecules beautifully. Let's follow that logic then. If it is so good at trapping things inside its porous structure, what else can it trap? Because the report mentions chelation in hair care and detox shampoos.
Yeah, so chelation is a chemical process of grabbing onto and isolating metal ions. Think about your everyday shower routine. When you wash your hair with standard tap water, you're constantly depositing limescale, calcium, and environmental heavy metals onto your hair shafts. And that invisible mineral buildup is what makes hair lose its natural elasticity, feel brittle, and just look dull, right?
Exactly. And usually, clarifying shampoos use harsh stripping sulfates to chemically burn that buildup away.
Are you saying the 3D graphene acts like a physical net for heavy metals?
Essentially, yes.
Hmm.
Because of its massive surface area and inherent electrostatic properties, the 3D graphene lattice actively attracts and captures those mineral deposits and heavy metals. It binds them within its pores, literally pulling the buildup away from the hair fiber.
Wow.
So you get a deep, detoxifying clean that restores the hair's natural bounce and shine, completely bypassing the need for harsh stripping chemicals.
Okay, so we've eliminated toxic phthalates in perfumes and harsh sulfates in shampoo.
Yeah.
But there is one more massive replacement mentioned in the report, and it addresses an ecological nightmare we hear about constantly: microplastics.
Oh, yeah. Microplastics are everywhere. They're in our oceans, in our rain, inside our own bodies. Yet they are still deliberately added to thousands of cosmetic products every single day as rheological modifiers.
Break down that term for us. What exactly is a rheological modifier doing in my face cream?
Sure. Rheology is just the study of how liquids flow. In cosmetics, you are often trying to mix oil and water together into a stable emulsion. If you just shake them up in a bottle, they eventually separate.
Like salad dressing?
Exactly like that. So to create a luxurious, stable, creamy texture that feels good on the skin, the industry relies on synthetic polymers and acrylic microplastics. Those microplastics act as an invisible scaffolding, physically holding the oil and water together so the cream feels thick and smooth.
But then every time you wash your
Yeah.
face, those acrylic microplastics go straight down the drain and right into the ocean.
Millions of tons of them globally. But the 3D morphology of this biogenic graphene naturally structures fluids. That three-dimensional carbon web acts as a natural physical scaffold. It traps the water and oils within its matrix, creating a stable, creamy texture entirely on its own.
So a cosmetics company can take an existing formula, pull out the polluting synthetic polymers and the acrylic microplastics entirely, and just drop in this upcycled coffee waste to achieve the exact same luxurious texture.
It's a true one-for-one replacement that turns a polluting product into a clean, organic one.
I mean, the science is undeniable. The environmental and health benefits are staggering. But we have to ground this in reality for a minute, because we are sitting here in August of 2026, and the financial projections in this Novi Amazonia report are looking just over the horizon to the 2028 to 2030 window.
Right.
The technology sounds miraculous, but does it have real-world economic viability, or is it destined to remain a really cool laboratory experiment?
The economic viability is arguably the driving force behind this entire report. The global market for carbon nanomaterials is aggressively pivoting right now. High-end, luxury cosmetic brands are actively demanding this exact type of ultra-purity and sustainability. By 2028 to 2030, the projected global demand specifically for certified biocompatible carbon nanomaterials for premium cosmetics is expected to hit between 15,000 and 25,000 kilograms annually.
Now wait. To anyone listening, 25,000 kilograms might sound like, what, the weight of a few small trucks? It doesn't sound like a massive global supply.
It sounds small, yeah, but we have to remember we are talking about a microscopic nanomaterial. A single gram of this hyperporous sponge has an unfathomable amount of surface area. A kilogram goes an incredibly long way in manufacturing.
And because of that potency, it carries a jaw-dropping price tag.
Oh, absolutely. This is not the bulk, impure industrial graphene you'd use to, reinforce concrete or build a tennis racket. This is cosmetic-grade, high-purity, biogenic 3D graphene.
Which takes a lot to certify, right?
Right. Achieving that grade requires an INCI registration. That's the International Nomenclature of Cosmetic Ingredients, along with rigorous, exhaustive dermatological certifications to prove it is 100% safe for human application. And because of that extreme purity and testing, this material sells for anywhere from 1,800 to 3,500 euros per kilogram.
Up to 3,500 euros for a single kilo. That is wild.
It is. Let's run a very conservative estimate based on the report. If we assume a demand of 20,000 kilograms at an average price of 2,500 euros a kilo, the raw material market alone is generating 50 million euros annually.
Just for supplying the foundational ingredient.
Exactly.
A 50 million euro market materialized out of upcycled farm waste. But the report doesn't stop there. It outlines a massive multiplier effect for the finished goods. Because at the end of the day, consumers aren't buying a jar of raw black powder, right? They are buying a high-end luxury anti-aging serum that proudly features this biogenic graphene as its star active ingredient.
Right, and when you factor in the final commercial formulations, the regenerative serums, the heavy metal detox hair masks, the 24-hour smart makeup, the consumer market size just explodes. The report estimates that finished products powered by this specific Costa Rican technology will drive a global consumer market of over 1.5 billion euros.
1.5 billion euros. I mean, think about the macroeconomic shift this represents for a country like Costa Rica. Historically, the economic model for the Global South has been to export cheap, raw agricultural products like green coffee beans for pennies on the dollar.
And then the Global North refines those beans, brands them, and sells back expensive, high-tech finished goods.
Exactly. But here we are watching Costa Rica take the absolute lowest value waste product of their agriculture. The dead branches and the discarded skins apply patented homegrown technology and export one of the most premium, high-tech, and expensive cosmetic ingredients on the planet.
This raises an important question about how we view global supply chains. It completely flips the traditional economic script. It is a masterclass in the circular economy, proving that sustainability and massive profitability really do not have to be mutually exclusive.
It is a total paradigm shift. So let's bring all of this incredible science and economics together. What does this deep dive mean for us? We started by looking at a pile of dead branches, roasted pulp, and bean skins rotting on a coffee farm in the Central Valley.
Yep.
We learned how green pyrolysis is used to starve that waste of oxygen, burning away everything until only a microscopic 3D carbon skeleton remains. We discovered that these biosponges can safely encapsulate unstable vitamins, naturally block UV rays, physically rip apart acne bacteria, and entirely replace toxic phthalates and acrylic microplastics in the beauty industry.
All while driving a new billion-euro global market.
Exactly. So what does this all mean? I think true innovation isn't always about inventing a brand new, highly synthetic chemical in a sterile lab. Sometimes the most elegant and effective solutions come from simply understanding the molecular architecture that nature has already perfected.
Nature already did the impossibly hard work of designing the structure. We just had to develop the thermal key to unlock it.
Beautifully said.
It does leave you with one lingering thought to chew on, though. If the discarded branches and skins from our morning cup of coffee contain the hidden architecture for a multi-billion-euro nanosponge, what other microscopic miracles are currently sitting in our agricultural landfills right now, just waiting for the right application of heat to completely change the world?
Oh, man. That is definitely something to think about the next time you're staring at those messy, gritty grounds in the bottom of your French press. Thank you to our listener for bringing us such a phenomenal source today. Keep digging, keep questioning, keep sending us those fascinating nuggets of knowledge. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.